In our video number 20, let's discuss informalization. The movement of workforce from self-employment and regular salaried to casual wage work, we called it casualization of workforce. Now, employment in India can be divided into two: the formal or the organized sector and the informal or the unorganized sector. Now, if we look at the number of workers in millions in the formal and the informal sectors, we find men are 24 when compared to 6 women in the formal sector and 310 men to 133 women in the informal sector. So what we notice over here is whether it is formal or the informal sector, the men form the major number than the women. Let's understand the formal sector. The formal or the organized sector consists of all the public sector establishments. Certain private sector establishments which employ 10 or more than 10 hired workers. Then in the formal sector, the rights of these people or the workers are protected through labor laws. The workers are entitled to social security benefits like the provident fund, gratuity, pension, etc. And of the total workforce employed in the formal sector, we have only the 6% of the workforce. The rest 94% are in the informal sector. Of the 6%, 20% are women and 80% are men. The workers in the formal sector earn more than those in the informal sectors. And they also form trade unions and bargain for better wages and other social security measures. Often you must have heard lockouts, bunds, etc., which are, brought out by these people to bargain for their wages and other benefits. The Union Ministry of Labour, through the employment exchanges which are located in different parts of the country, collects information relating to employment in the formal sector. Here we find that men form the majority than the women in the formal sector. Women which are only one-sixth of the total workforce. The economists point out that the reform process initiated in the early 1990s resulted in a decline in the number of workers employed in the formal sector. Now let's understand the informal sector. Informal sector consists of the private establishments with less than 10 workers. 10 or more than 10 we learnt it as formal sector. So less than 10 workers would be informal sector. Now the workers in the informal sector are not entitled. They are not entitled to social security benefits like the pension, provident fund, gratuity, etc. They also do not have regular income or on any protection from the government. They also cannot form trade unions, and the rights are also not protected by the labor laws. These people can be dismissed from work anytime without any prior notice. Example of the informal sector form the agricultural laborers, owners of small enterprises, non-farm casual wage laborers, which are construction workers and head load workers. Then we also have people selling vegetables, fruits, roadside vending, cobblers. Then also at traffic signals who sell variety of goods to the public. And these form 94% of the workforce. The employment growth has declined in the organized sector and increased in the informal sector. This shift from the organized sector to the informal sector is called as informalization of workforce. Now, we learned that they are not protected by any government these labor laws or anything like this. But now, owing to the efforts of the International Labour Organization, the Indian government has initiated the modernization of informal sector enterprises and provision of social security measures for the people in the informal sector. Now, what were the reasons for this decline in the formal sector? See, here they earn more than those in the informal sector. They have trade unions, they can bargain for wages, they have social security measures. In spite of that, why this shift from the formal sector to the informal sector? This is because of the economic reforms that were brought out in the year 1991. This encouraged privatization. We also learned in our previous chapters that public sector units underwent huge losses due to various factors. So the government thought of privatizing the public sector units and also disinvestment, that is selling a part of the public sector units to the private sectors. Then certain establishments also shifted to capital intensive technology to be more competitive. Though it was a formal sector, why did it shift from the labor intensive technique to the capital intensive technology? India is a large country with a huge population, so labor intensive would be more profitable because it would solve the unemployment problem. But here they chose to be capital intensive. One, to be more competitive, less labor and more of machines. They could produce quality goods and also increase in quantity. Right? Third reason is the job opportunities in the formal sector were not growing. So there was no scope of any improvement in the formal sector. Ahmedabad is one of the known places or cities for textiles. This was affected by informalization. So let's understand how informalization affected the city of Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad consists of more than 60 textile mills and it employed more than 150,000 labor force. And over a century, over a period of 100 years, they acquired income security, social security schemes protecting their health, old age, and they also formed a strong trade union which not only represented them in disputes but also ran activities for the welfare of workers and their families. But what happened in early 1980s was the textile mills all over the country began to close down. In Ahmedabad, because of these things, the income security, social security schemes, strong trade unions, etc., it was over a span of 10 years that the closure took. And in the meantime, 80,000 permanent workers, 50,000 non-permanent workers were moved to the informal sector. They lost their jobs and were driven to informal sector. And eventually what happened was there was economic recession which led to communal riots, a lot of public disturbance. And since they did not have enough incomes, they were moved to poverty, which led to alcoholism and suicides. And the ones that were most affected were the children, who were now withdrawn from the schools and sent to work. Now let's understand what is unemployment. According to National Sample Survey Organization, a situation in which all those who, owing to lack of work, are not working but either seek work through employment exchanges, intermediaries, friends or relatives, or by making applications to prospective employers or express their willingness or availability for work under the prevailing conditions of work and remuneration. So what does this mean? There is lack of work. People are there willing to work. So what they do, they either seek the employment exchanges, intermediaries, friends, relatives. They also give applications to various organizations and express their willingness. That means they are willing to work for what? For the available work under the prevailing conditions and also the wages or salary. So whatever is available, for that only they will agree to work. That is the definition given by the NSSO. According to the economists, an unemployed is one who is not able to get employment of even 1 hour in half a day. So, all those who are able and willing to work fail to get jobs at the prevailing wage rates. So, what happens is there is wastage of valuable services of human resources. Unemployment measures only involuntary idleness. It is not voluntary, it is involuntary. That means they don't choose to stay idle. Therefore, those permanently incapable, not willing to work, and persons below 15 years of age, that means children, and above 60 years, that means senior citizens, are not measured under unemployment. So those who are permanently incapable, meaning they have some ill health or they are physically handicapped, and those who are not willing to work, they don't want to work, even if they have the capability, even if they are able to do it, but they don't want to do it. And children and senior citizens are not measured under unemployment. So how do we know how many people are employed and how many unemployed? The sources of data on unemployment is given by the reports of the Census of India, the NSSO's reports of employment and unemployment situation, and the Directorate General of Employment and Training data of registration with employment exchanges. So these are the three sources of data that provide us with data on unemployment. Now, unemployment can be classified into three: the rural unemployment, urban unemployment, and the other types. The rural unemployment consists of disguised and seasonal unemployment, because rural people are mostly engaged in agriculture. That means 75% of the workers in the rural areas are in the primary sector or the agricultural sector. So this causes this disguised unemployment, which is the most common type of unemployment, where more than actually required number of workers are engaged in work. Where 2 workers are needed, 4 workers will be, or 5 workers will be working. Then we have additional workers. So this is disguised unemployment. Then we have the seasonal unemployment. It occurs because of agriculture, which is a seasonal kind of a thing in India. And the farmer is unemployed in off season. Then we have the urban unemployment. People in the urban areas suffer unemployment because they are educated, and there is industrial unemployment too. Industrial unemployment refers to unemployment which occurs because of modern industrial development, which is based on adopting capital intensive technology. So that uses labor saving devices. So few people are, given jobs. Then educated unemployment. This, this is because people are educated, but the system is not job oriented. It's only acquiring degrees. So where is the skill? So since we lack skill, there is educated unemployment. Then you have the other types of unemployment, like the open unemployment, where people are able and willing to work but fail to get work, and they are ready to work at the existing wage rate. And of course, there are no job opportunities also available. Then underemployment. What is underemployment? It is a situation when a worker does not work for full time, or even if he is working for full time, he is paid less than what he should get. Then we have the structural, frictional, and the cyclical unemployment. Then what's the solution to this problem? What's the solution then? The The first one is direct or indirect generation of employment opportunities by the government. That could be a state government, central government, or the union territories. Now, direct employment is government employs people in various departments in the administrative purposes, and it also runs industries, hotels, transport companies, construction of dams, laying roads, etc., and then generates employment. Indirectly, it can bring about a rise in the output by the private companies. How? Because they have a lot of raw materials from the government enterprises. So this makes these private companies raise their output since raw material is available. Now, the special measures undertaken by the government to solve unemployment, we have already learned this under poverty alleviation programs. So there are self-employment schemes, there are wage employment programs. The self-employment programs like the Rural Employment Generation Program, the Prime Minister's Rozgar Yojana, and the Swarna Jayanti Shahri Rozgar Yojana, which is both self-employment and wage employment program. Then we have Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana. Then we have Sampurna Gramin Rozgar Yojana, and the most successful program Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005. Later in 2006, it was called as National Rural Employment Generation Guarantee Scheme, which was launched in February 2006. And this also includes the National Food for Work program, okay, which is 100% centrally financed program implemented in about 150 backward districts of the country to generate wage employment.